Ladies and gentlemen, the show we've all been waiting for. Paranormal Buzz Radio is proud to present arePeople Paranormal and Friends with your hosts, Kim Purvis and Allison Robinson. Live every Thursday night on Spreaker, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. Be sure to check out their Facebook page, arePeople Paranormal Busters.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another night of arePeople Paranormal and Friends. We have a special guest tonight who is a paranormal investigator and author of The Hayes House Ghosts Are Humans Too. So,
People too.
Or people too. Humans. I don't know why I said humans. I just typed it in. arePeople too. So we have Keit Evans tonight, so welcome.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Very well, very well. How's the weather where you're at?
It looks like we might get some rain.
It's been pouring here all day long.
For the last 2 days.
Yeah, for like the last 2 days.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm ready for some sunshine.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, let's get into it. You have a bachelor's degree in chemistry. You're a retired forensic scientist too. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you've also are a paranormal investigator and an author. Is there anything that you don't do?
I guess there are some things.
So, you've been kind of communicating with the paranormal for quite a while. When did this all start for you?
I guess when I was a child, I was always interested in anything old. I always, got enjoyment out of, like, say, the old wood, old trim on a house, anything that had been there for a long time. And I couldn't understand why it brought me such joy, because personally I wasn't all that crazy about, wood. And I thought, well, I like it. And, my parents would look at me like I was crazy. Why is a 4-year-old liking wood,
Yeah.
And I think what I was feeling was all the individuals who had owned the older homes, and I felt what they loved. They probably, a lot of the old wainscoting wood was kind of like the lower area wood in heavily traveled areas like hallways and dining rooms and kitchens. And most people had it either oiled to the point or that it was shiny, or they either varnished it until it was shiny. But to me, I just thought that was so nice, because most of the homes that I lived in when I was growing up had, I guess you could call it, drywall, just the modern type drywall with paint on it. And that didn't really do much for me at all. So I think what I was doing as an empath is feeling the joy and the pride that this wood and decorations on the interior and exterior of the older homes had brought their owners over the years. And I guess that would be my first inclination that I was picking up on stuff, even though it was years later before I found out what the word empath meant. And so I guess I was probably 3 or 4 when I started enjoying older stuff. And my parents were very much into has to be modern or we're throwing it out. They didn't like anything old. And I grew up in the 60s and the early 70s.
See, I like the older style things too.
I like the older wood and stuff.
Yeah, I do too. And Victorian and things like that. I love the detail and stuff that they had back then.
And all the craftsmen it took to carve some of that stuff out.
Yeah,
I agree. As a 3 or 4 year old, most 3 or 4 year olds aren't tuning into it the way that I did.
Right.
So anyway, that was my first sign that I was a little bit different than the other children. And now, as I have become older, I feel it was because of my empathic abilities that I was picking up on the joy that this interior wood had actually brought other people who had lived there throughout the years. I was feeling their strong emotions, whether it was when they were alive or after their death, but I was picking up on it. And that's what got me into the paranormal. I didn't find out until I was like 12 or 13. And I know this because I was talking to my grandfather about it. And I'd never really mentioned it because I was kind of like going behind my mother's back and going with an aunt to see a train wreck that had taken place. And I thought it had taken place around 1962. And I told my grandfather about it because I knew he wouldn't tell my mother. And then he looked at me really funny and he said, well, what did this lady look like that took you to the train wreck? And I told him that it was my Aunt Virgie and Aunt Ada were still alive. So I knew what they looked like when I was 13. And I knew that the lady that took me to the train wreck didn't look like neither my Aunt Virgie or my Aunt Ada. And I figured she couldn't have changed that much from 1962 until about 72 was the period of time that I told my grandfather. And I told him that the lady that took me to the train wreck was a cross between my Aunt Virgie and my Aunt Ada. And he said, well, that would be his mother, which is my great grandmother on my mother's side. And she passed away when my grandfather was probably 8 or 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
So it was one of those things. I didn't realize going to the train wreck was anything other than me not staying in bed. I used to always wake up early. I would wake up hungry around 8 a.m. And my mother slept late, at least until 10. And she had a rule that I wasn't allowed to get out of bed and, do anything. I wasn't allowed to go outside and play. And so anyway, when my aunt came into the room, I explained to her, I thought it was my Aunt Virgie or my Aunt Ada at the time. And I explained to her that I wasn't allowed to, leave the house until my mother got up. And I knew that my mother wasn't getting along with neither of my aunts at the time. So I told her I didn't want to get in trouble. And this was when I was like 3 or 4, probably 4, I would imagine. And she said, no, you'll be all right. We'll be back before she wakes up. So her and I walked up, as I remember, this, of course, I was 4 years old. We walked up about a quarter of a mile up the track to where the train wreck was. And the cars were kind of off on their side, strung through an area that was a open shed cannon factory. And that was pretty much it. And we walked back, and I had heard the adults talking about the train wreck, and I had asked them questions about it, and they wouldn't answer me. They told me to go
Uh-huh.
play with the kids. And I was interested in the train wreck. I was never interested in what the children were doing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to be able to go and see the train wreck to me was just fantastic. As a
Mhm.
4-year-old, how many 4-year-olds are interested in train wrecks?
Yeah, not
And
very many.
so anyway, when I got back, I got in bed, and then my aunt left, and my mother hadn't woke up, and I thought, good, I got over on her, and I got to see the train wreck. Of
Yeah.
course, nobody at the time when I was 4 years old spoke up and said, Keith, the train wreck, you can't see it. It happened before you were born. But I didn't find that out until I was 13. And
Oh
then
my
my
goodness.
grandfather told me.
Oh
And then
wow.
him and I never talked about it again. And he was killed shortly after that in an auto
Oh
accident.
no.
So I would have loved for him to have lived longer and for him and I to had a follow up conversation about that. But that didn't happen.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's too bad. But yeah, that's interesting that you say, when you're 4 that you're interested in all those things because I mean, do you think maybe it was something from like a past life too? Like could you know how some children they like talk about all these things but really they were actually there like they were reincarnated or something to that effect? Have you
Well, as a possibility, I mean, anything's possible.
right.
But I feel that somehow my grandfather's mother, my great grandmother, somehow wanted to show me. And I
Mhm.
think through her thoughts and feelings, I think that was one way that she was able to take me to the train wreck. Somehow, I think once we pass away, we're just electromagnetic energy.
Mhm.
And I think she was able to somehow transmit that into my brain so I could see, hear, and feel it just like I was doing it. But I would imagine as a 4-year-old walking a quarter of a mile is a pretty good hike,
Right.
and it didn't seem like it was all that exhausting to me. So
Uh-huh.
I think somehow she might have transmitted it into my brain
Mhm.
without, me even leaving the room.
Room. Oh,
But
yeah.
then again, it could have been a past life event. There's
Mhm.
two possibilities that
Mhm.
I could draw, that could have happened.
Right. Yeah. That's very interesting. I don't think I ever had anything quite like that when I was younger. I mean, I know I used to say weird things to my mom. Like, I'd just go up to her randomly and be like, can I go home now? And she didn't understand me, or I'd talk random things to her. But it's always interesting to hear that when somebody has experiences at that such young of an age because where do they actually come up with that stuff? It's mind-boggling to me. Like, how do they actually get that information? Are they getting it from, a relative or a spirit or reincarnation? It's just stuff that I always constantly think about, and you really, you don't know where it always comes from. But,
Well, I knew my father told me that I looked a lot like my grandfather on my father's side, and he passed away 2 years before I was born. And even my uncles would say that I was a splitting image of him, except I'm about maybe 3 or 4 inches shorter than he
uh-huh,
was.
uh-huh.
So, I think reincarnation is definitely possible. I think as a ghost or a spirit,
Mhm.
I think we can come back into other people's, into a newborn's body. In fact,
Mhm.
every newborn might just be a recycled spirit,
Yeah.
that
Right.
has passed away prior.
Mhm. That is a possibility. It really actually is. Nobody actually really knows at this point, but like you said, anything is possible.
I agree. And I have had situations. You were talking about how you would say things to your mother, and your mother was wondering, why you were saying you wanted to go home. I've had situations where people would ask questions about, say, a situation that I was never in, and I would answer them,
Mm-hmm.
and I would answer them correct,
Uh-huh.
and I would say, "What did I say?" And they'd say, "What was that word you just said?" And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, "I'm not sure." But it would be like someone else was answering through me.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the time that happened, I was with um, a friend and someone that he knew that I just first met,
Uh-huh.
and both of them were Vietnam veterans. And this was like in the early to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about Vietnam, and they couldn't remember the name of this one village.
Uh-huh.
It was a small village, and
Uh-huh.
it had a Vietnamese name, which is pronounced different than the English type words. And out of my mouth came the name, and the guy said, "How could you know that unless you were there?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm not sure what I just said."
Oh my
So
goodness.
anyway, that surprised even me. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they were like messing with me,
Uh-huh.
because some people have fun like that.
Right.
And then after, the one guy that I was friends with, he asked me about that. He said, "Keith, how did you know that?"
Uh-huh.
He was like questioning, like, "You had to be there to know that." And I said, "No, I've never been in a combat situation. I've been in the military, but
Mm-hmm.
never a combat situation any place."
Uh-huh.
And he said, "I still don't understand how you knew that." And I told him, I know I said something and it came out of my mouth, but I wasn't even sure what I had said after I had said it.
Oh wow.
So, and that surprised me. So it's almost like if you're an empath, there's a possibility that ghosts and spirits can use you as an avenue
Mm-hmm.
to speak and
Mm-hmm.
to get points across.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be nice if more people would study that. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say for me, sometimes more things happen when I'm not doing a paranormal uh, investigation or session or
Mm-hmm.
research at a location. Sometimes when I'm just at home, things will happen that, a lot of times I don't even take time to document it or write it down or, because you just don't have enough hours in the day.
Right. Yeah. Excuse me. I had to sneeze there for a second. I was trying to hold it in. It never fails. Every show I always have a sneeze in there somewhere.
I have allergies, but when my allergies kick in,
Uh-huh.
it'll just like I have this terrible itching in my throat, and
Oh.
I can just cough for like 5 minutes, and it's no congestion. It's just that itching in the top
Oh.
of my throat,
Oh, yeah,
and
that's the
everyone
worst.
thinks I'm dying or something, but I'm not.
That is the worst. All
I
right.
agree.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your book. For those that are in chat and listening, why don't you kind of describe what your book is about?
Well, my book, The Hayes House Ghost or People 2, is just a regular Victorian home that was built in 1908 by Jeff Buck. And he had 5 children, and he lived at the Hayes House from the time he built it in 1908 until he passed away in 1921. And after that, the next family that moved in was in 1945, and that was the Hayes family. And the last Hayes family member lived there until she sold the house, and that was Kathleen Hayes, and she sold the house in 1996. So nothing negative or outrageous happened there. It was just
Mm-hmm.
a family home for close to 100 years. And both families that lived there were, dedicated to the house and loved the
Mm-hmm.
house. And I think that their ghosts of spirits are there as what I call the guardian angel type ghost of spirit,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to look out for it and wanting the best for the house because that was the place that they spent the majority of their life or the best parts of their life for the Buck family. And I think they're still looking after it. And after I got there and seeing that there was like, 6 or 7 main ghosts of spirits, and that some people think that ghosts of spirits are trapped, but they're not trapped there. They can come and go as they please, but they choose when they're on Earth, or at least within the physical rim, they choose to hang out at the Hayes house and look after it. And I just thought that was something that should be written about because most people want to write about like a horror movie story of paranormal. And I've been involved in the paranormal, I guess, ever since I was 3 or 4.
Right.
And I haven't seen the negativeness. Now I've seen negativeness when it comes to human beings.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes to dead or spirits or ghosts, haven't seen it. Now I'm not saying that if there are good and evil living people, sure, there can be good and living dead people also.
Right.
So, but I haven't seen it. And I just thought we should equal the playing field and show some of the positive things about paranormal. And that's what I like to do. I like to look at the positive side. And if negativeness happens, then I'll deal with that when it comes. But I try to go to places that were well loved. And I know most of the older Victorian homes, whoever owned them had to have a good bit of financial backing to be able to purchase one in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And they usually took care of it, and it was like the pride and joy of their life. So you're going to get a lot of positiveness if you can find a single family dwelling where you had at least 1 or 2 families that stayed there 20, 30, 40 years. And Kathleen Hayes, she had been there over 50 years before she went into a nursing home.
Wow. That's insane. Now, where is...
If there's anyone else out there who has a Victorian home and would like to give me written permission to do paranormal research at their home, as I have funding available, I would try to get to that location. But I would like to get the consent agreement form signed up front. And usually what I would like to do with the footage or data that I received from doing the paranormal research on the premises, I would like to use it for either a book, future book, TV program, or movie, and definitely for social media. So if there's anyone listening who, if the light bulb goes off in their head and they're interested, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, and they can get in touch with me. And, my email is petcat2006 at yahoo.com. And I can always send them the consent agreement form electronically through the email, and then they can print it out, sign it, and mail it back. They just have to be the owner, and if it's a business, they have to be the owner and the proprietor of the business. They have to own the business and the real property for me to be able to use the footage in any type of book, TV show, and or movie, and of course social media.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, get that information out there. I mean, we have listeners all over. We have them in the country, out of the country, everywhere. So it's good to get that out there so that way if somebody does know a place, because I mean, a lot of these places, they don't get preserved like they should too. And so maybe if you get the information out there, then more people will preserve these beautiful Victorian places to what they should be instead of just letting them go or demolishing them, as you see with so many Victorian places or even other, buildings that, are still neat structures and stuff, but yet they just end up demolishing them when, they could possibly be preserved.
And it's very important to preserve as much of the interior and exterior wood because, like the stone tape theory,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that any residual energy will be lost if you replace the, say, like the hardwood floors or the horizontal
Mm-hmm.
tongue and groove uh, wall boards or the tongue and groove ceiling boards. If you replace that and put in drywall and paint it,
Right.
residual energy is gone. And
Mm-hmm.
I also feel that any type of ghost or spirit that is intelligent
Mm-hmm.
might lose interest in the place if it doesn't look like the home they lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose that guardian angel type ghost or spirit that's looking out for the structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very important to preserve as much of the interior wood and exterior wood of all the older structures, whether it be the Victorian style homes that were built between the 1880s and the 1920s, or any structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is a good point. That is a good. I mean, that is a good idea to do as well. Like, I love to
And
drive around and just see these places too.
I would love to have a TV show and just zero in on only Victorian homes as far as the paranormal behind the home and also the preservation of the home. Some of these homes have really beautiful decorative fireplace mantles. Also, for instance, at the Hayes house, the first floor, there's two fireplaces with a double type fireplace, a front and a back fireplace for the four rooms on the first floor. Uh, I would say the front rooms and the middle room on the first floor. And all four fireplaces are very decorative. And you don't see that too much
No.
when it comes to modern day fireplaces. And the
Mm-hmm.
Hayes house also had very decorative when it comes to the skeleton key type doorknobs and the key base plate,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
was the metal around where the skeleton key would go in. Very decorative. It almost looked like some type of Christmas scene until I took a close up picture and examined it. And it's not a Christmas scene, but it's very decorative. I don't know what the style was called
Huh.
or what
Yeah.
it was called at the time. But other than that, the Hayes house is not all that flamboyant.
Mm-hmm.
The stairway is not very decorative. It's just certain things were very decorative,
Mm-hmm.
and all the around the fireplace and the flooring on the fireplace out in front. You know, to keep the hardwood floor from catching on fire.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a decorative type marble that was made from a company. I think it was in, if I remember correctly, Louisiana and New Orleans, and they made like a marble style. It looked like marble to me, even though I talked to some people that said it really wasn't marble, but whatever it was, it looked
Uh-huh.
like marble,
Huh.
and it was a very decorative and colorful tile, and just about all the rooms on the first floor and some of the rooms on the I'm pretty sure all the rooms on the second floor have the tile around the wall, but not on the floor. I don't know whether it was replaced or cemented over or what, but they have it around the wall opening on the fireplace so that it wouldn't heat up and catch on fire.
Right. Right.
So it had to be some type of fire resistant tile.
Wow. Hmm. I didn't realize they would have something like that back then.
Yes, they had to. Otherwise, the fireplace would have probably
Really
caught the
build
house
that
on
son fire.
fire.
Yeah, that is
That was
true.
their only way of heating home back then.
Excuse me. Okay, I held it in. I had another sneeze coming on, but I held it in. All right, let's see here. I know we have some questions. Kim and I have been kind of keeping track of chat here, and we've had some questions that are coming in. Shay wanted to know, where can people find your book?
My book is available online at Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And some of the second and Charles stores can also, you can order at their location also.
Okay. Very good. So Amazon. Writing some of these down here. All right, so let's see here.
Any more questions?
Yep, there's more questions here.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
grabbing the notebook from Kim here. All right, let's see here. One question is, what's been your favorite paranormal location that you have read about?
I'm trying to think as far as I can't think of anything off the bat that I read about, say in a book. But as far as a newspaper, there's a I think it's pronounced Bozer.
Okay.
Bozier. It was a school for boys in Marianna, Florida. And I had read about that. I don't know if it was in a newspaper or whether it was in a journal or an article, but the University of South Florida, their PhD students did research there as far as trying to find the burial locations of young men who had passed away and did not have family with funds to bury them. And a lot of them were buried there at the school.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of like a prison for children in many ways. And it was there was a lot of sad situations of abuse and the young boys being killed while they were there. So it's a hard spot for anyone to get permission to do paranormal research. But that was one place that I thought I might be able to, utilize my skill to see if the ghosts or spirits wanted to tell me where they were buried at.
Oh.
And I thought I'd love to give that a try.
Oh, yeah.
I just like to be able to identify where they're at because, most people just say, all right, I want to buy the land, I want to develop it, and whatever's in the ground stays in the ground.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not good because someone's going to buy a business or a house. And if a ghost or spirit is buried there, they might feel disrespected. And a lot of times, these young men didn't have anyone in their corner. And a lot of times when you don't have anyone in your corner and you don't have a lot of financial help, sometimes you get railroaded. And I think it's sad. And I would just like to, if I could, assist in finding any of those graves so that, it'd be nice if they could make like a little park and just put up, one small tombstone and to honor the young men at this Bossier for boys that, are unnamed and kind of give a little bit of honor to them, just in memory of the fact that they were alive and they, had human dignity like everyone else. But it's been trying to get that. It's like pulling teeth. Right now, part of the location is open The road is very bad. But the only thing I see going on back there is a training area for law enforcement. So, but there's no signs that say you can't drive back there. And
Right.
I was able to drive back, and from the road I was on, I took pictures of the old church. The old church, I'd love to go closer, but I didn't want to get too far out of my car just in case, they want to try to say trespassing, because I don't have permission. But if there's an open road going there, and they tore down the fence and the guard shack that was out front. About 2 years ago, when I last tried to find out information about doing paranormal research there, they had a security guard at the fence, and the road that I drove down today was blocked off by a fence and a gate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I wonder why all of a sudden they decided to do that. Or people like trespassing?
As far as do what?
You
fence
said,
it off?
yeah.
Well, it had been fenced off for years. Ever since I remember seeing it when I first moved to Florida in the 90s. What is new from 2 years ago is that they took the fence down. The fence is still up along part of the highway, but the fence up front where the guard shack was is no longer there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Back. I didn't drive that far back. But anyway, it was a older brick, good sized guard shack. That's gone now. So somebody just tore it down. It's no longer there.
Wow.
So where I drove to where the church is located, that was all within fence. You couldn't get to it by driving.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I mean, I wonder, they leave it up for years. It's just another thing. Like, you see all these other buildings that, just stand there, and all of a sudden they just decide
Technology, gotta move on with the times. They gotta tear everything down.
Yeah, they gotta tear everything down and make everything modern. Make room for new shopping malls or whatever else they do nowadays. It seems like.
Well, I've talked to the local security guards that have worked there in the past, and they said that there was always paranormal activity going on. They said that, as a security guard, you have to make sure doors are locked. And they said that they would lock doors and come back an hour later and it would be unlocked. Some of them said that they would always, a voice would always say, supervisor's near, or something like that. Because in most places, your supervisor, when you're a security guard, I've done that job in the past, you'll have an area supervisor that'll check in on, several locations a night. And different security guards said that they would hear it with their own ears, a ghost or a spirit or something say, supervisor's near, and guess what? The supervisor would come up. So
wow.
But it was nothing bad other than the fact that doors that the security guards said they had locked were found unlocked an hour later. And if the supervisor starts checking doors and they're not locked, then they're going to think you're not doing your job. So that could be bad. So, but anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And I had spoken with more than one security guard that had told me that.
That's crazy.
I feel it's probably paranormal, and
oh yeah.
When most people want to be afraid of something that's unexplained, but if something is unexplained and it's not harmed you,
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to be afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel that people are wasting their time fearing something just because it can't be explained. I think most people can't explain how TV works or
Mm-hmm.
how a computer works, and they're not afraid to watch TV or afraid to use a
Right.
computer.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
And
that's
it's the
true.
same way with the paranormal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, do you go on a lot of different? Do you go to a lot of different areas when you investigate, or do you mainly investigate like at the Hayes house?
Well, the Hayes house was sold and has a
Okay.
new owner as of, I guess it was about February or March of 2019. In a little town like that, they want to be very quiet about what they're doing. And I don't know why, because everybody knows that, word travels fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fairly small town surrounded by, river and wetlands and the Gulf of Mexico and a couple bays and
Mm-hmm.
protective federal forests. So it's not a large area and it really
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have much chance of growing in the future. So I don't have permission from the new owner to
Okay.
do that. And
Mm-hmm.
I would require some type of written permission because verbal permission doesn't get you anywhere.
Anywhere?
It just
No.
means that what you have, you can't even use. So why bother?
Right. Yeah.
You need that written permission to do a book.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to put it on TV, you need written permission to put it on TV. If you want to do a movie, you need written permission to use any of the footage.
Mm-hmm. That is true. You got to have all that in writing for anything anymore. Otherwise, you might
And
get.
social media would be the same way. You could use it on social media, but you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be able to say where you got it at, or
Right.
you just say, "Oh, I got these words on the obelisk," or "I got
Mm-hmm.
uh, millimeter spike," or "I got this thermal image on my TG165
Mm-hmm.
flare imager." But you wouldn't be able to say where you got it at.
Right. That is true. That is a good point. All right, we got a few more questions here that have rolled through chat. So, the next one is, what do you fear most of the paranormal?
Well, I don't think I fear anything of the paranormal. What I fear is dying before I can convince most people that
Mm-hmm.
I would say 60, 70, 80% of all ghosts and spirits are well meaning spirits and ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
just as they were well meaning and good and decent living people.
Mm-hmm.
They are that way as a ghost and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to see more positivity given to ghosts and spirits. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, I'll be able to get a TV show to try to drive that home. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
nice to have a TV show about preservation of Victorian homes
Mm-hmm.
on ABC, NBC, or CBS, so
Right.
everyone can get to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
I don't. I fear more about not being able to accomplish that because I think that would be my mission. I could go back just to being the anonymous person that does paranormal for myself and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't advertise at all. And sometimes I think about that because that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough trying to, have two or three camcorders and
Mm-hmm.
trying to cover every angle of the room. And
Right.
it's tough finding all of the storage space you need through external hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough trying to save it in two locations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes after I do a couple hours of paranormal research, I spend, several hours just cataloging everything and
Right.
storing it and
Mm-hmm.
labeling it. Because if you don't label it, you're not going to remember what it is. And
Right.
if I want to write a book, I have to do a lot of notes right while
Mm-hmm.
I'm filming
Right.
the 1 hour or 2 hour session. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, usually I might do back to back 2 hour sessions if everything is good and I have enough storage space and I have batteries that are okay and there's no problem there. But most of the time, I just do an hour. And by
Mm-hmm.
that time, whatever ghost or spirit you're talking to, they're out of energy, and you're going to have to probably wait 24 hours for them to be able to utilize your
Mm-hmm.
equipment, unless a ghost or spirit comes into the, your environment to utilize it. So I think most people should keep that in mind when they're doing paranormal research. It's ghosts or spirits don't have unlimited energy to communicate with the equipment that we have today.
Mm-hmm. That is true. A lot of times they use the energy from your batteries and things just to get enough energy to kind of communicate with you.
Yes.
All right, let's see here. Next question is, what is on your bucket list?
Well, I in a way, I kind of covered that. I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
like to teach people about the good ghost, the guardian angel ghost, and I would mainly like to go to places that are single family homes, especially Victorian homes, even though I won't rule out, doing modern motels or doing modern homes. But I like to go to places that have been utilized at least for 20 or 30 years because when we pass away, we're going to spend most of our time where we love most. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
for me, the beach,
Ooh,
but
yeah.
you're not going to go back to the place that you lived for 1 year while your house was being built.
Right.
You're going to go to the house where you spent 20 or 30 years, where you mowed the lawn, every year, and where you painted the walls, and where you ate your breakfast for, 20 or 30 years, or where you lay down and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go back to wherever called home. And I, if you could find a house where you have, maybe 3 or 4 different families who spent 20 plus years, that's like, to me, digging into a gold mine because you're probably going to get a lot of activity. And if you have the energy and you have the batteries and you don't mind doing our paranormal research and an hour cataloging and documenting everything into folders into your computers and your external hard drives,
Mm-hmm.
then you could do another hour and you might get a totally fresh family because one family might be there and then the next family might say, well, when their energy runs out, we'll pick it up from there. And you just have to have your questions so that you know a little bit about all 4 families
Mm-hmm.
and just test waters and
Right.
see which family comes up and answers a question that seems to be relevant to what you're asking,
Mm-hmm.
and then go from there.
Yep.
And that's why it's very important to know the history about who lived at the house, or if you're doing a business, who owned a business, who worked at the business. You might have a bakery where there was a baker who worked there 40 years, and it could be that each owner only owned it for a short period of time, so the owner might not really care about that place that much, but you might get the baker who worked there for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know as much history as possible. Otherwise, your data that you get, say from your Obelisk 5B, the words might not make any sense if you don't know the person who actually worked there or lived there or owned the place.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had to move around. Yeah, that is a good point. And sometimes, I think, well, when Kim and I are out on investigations, some of these places we've been to so many times, we may get some of the same spirits that we talk to. But other times there's other ones that come through that we're not sure who they are, and we're not sure if it's something that we're actually catching, or if, they're just like they had come with, like another group,
Yeah.
like an attachment, or if they're just passing by. It's just
I think ghosts of spirits can come and go. I think they can travel just like we can travel down the road or we can walk across the yard. I don't think they really need a certain method of travel, which some people like to call portals. I think the whole system of a portal was overused. I think ghosts and spirits, since they're just electromagnetic energy, I think they can pretty much travel the speed of light to wherever they want to go. And I don't think they need a so-called portal to, travel from one dimension to another dimension. If anything, I find most ghosts and spirits are people too, except they're dead and they want their privacy. So you might find a ghost or spirit in your closet because that's one place they can go that your family is not in the same room.
Yeah.
They have their little room. And most people don't have enough rooms to just give the ghost of spirit their own room. So I think a lot of people find ghosts of spirits in the closet because most closets you can't even walk into. I mean, they're small and they're just for hanger clothes or storage. And the ghost of spirit can go in there and kind of have their own space.
That's a good point. That really is actually a good point. I mean, I'd hide in the closet too. I'd want my privacy. I wouldn't want people harassing me all the time.
I agree. And I think ghosts of spirits will use a obelisk 5B and a millimeter if you set it down more or less. If you're holding it in your hand, it'd be like me allowing someone to use my cell phone, but they have to talk on it and dial it while I'm holding it in my hand. I think ghosts of spirits, they feel like, well, if you want me to use it, let me have it.
Right.
And since ghosts of spirits don't have that physical body, I think if you lay it down, you'll get better results. And when I do paranormal research, if I'm say doing an hour in every room, and I did at the Hayes house, I did at least 2 1-hour sessions in each room and porch at the Hayes house. It was actually 20 chapters worth. There's 21 chapters, but the first chapter is just about the history of the Buck family. It doesn't involve any paranormal of the Hayes house in that chapter. But if you're going to do paranormal research, I think it's best to try to get the ghosts and spirits to feel as comfortable with you as possible. Be respectful and give them an opportunity to have the equipment to themselves if you want them to utilize it. Now, with the flare thermal imager, they don't really need that because, they can be off in the distance and you can still pick up a cold spot. But when it comes to the millimeter and the obelisk 5B, I think you should just sit down on the table, back off. And if you get a spike, be close enough that you can take a picture or have a video camera focused on it so that you can pick up whatever the ghost or spirit chooses, whether it be a millimeter spike or a temperature change or a word on the obelisk 5B.
Yep. Let's see, I'm just looking here. We have a couple more questions before we have to start wrapping things up here.
Okay.
Darren would like, I believe it was Darren, wants to know if you've ever been to the Winchester house.
No, I have not. I've seen it on TV.
Mm-hmm. That place looks interesting. Let's see here. And then he has another question. What Victorian home baffles you the most?
Well, I don't think I've had any that have baffled me. Um, the 1880 Victorian in St. Augustine, I did paranormal research there about a little over a year ago, I guess. And I had a situation there. It's the latest situation that I remember where there was a young lady, and it's like a 4 bedroom Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know who else is there. And the common areas, anyone staying there can utilize them. And I actually thought this young lady was a member of the family. And first time I saw her, the owner and his family was there. And he had invited me to sit down and talk with him. The only problem was all 4 chairs, rocking chairs out on the front porch, were being utilized. And there was a younger lady in the um, rocking chair closest to the door where you go in. So I thought, well, maybe I heard him wrong because my hearing's not that good. And I looked at the young lady and she kept smiling. And I thought, well, that's strange that she kept smiling like that. And I asked her, I said, are you still in school? And the owner answered me, and he kind of got a puzzled look on his face, like, I'm no, I'm through with school. He said he had a degree and all. So apparently it was a ghost or a spirit, and no one was trying to get over on me.
Oh my goodness.
And even though I consider myself to be a seasoned veteran, sometimes ghosts and spirits look as real flesh and blood as you and I, and
Right.
you can't tell the difference. At least I wasn't able to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm to admit that. So if I can't tell the difference, I would imagine someone with less experience wouldn't even think about it.
Right, exactly. They think they were just talking to like you or I instead of an actual spirit. Yeah.
And a lot of times that's the way ghosts and spirits are. They're not there to scare you. They're just there to communicate. But I hope to go back and try to see if I can, pick up on this ghost or spirit again. But I would say, I don't know if that falls under most people's opinion of being baffled, but it certainly, I was able to be fooled.
Right.
And I was, I guess, flabbergasted by it.
That's awesome. I haven't come across that yet. I'm just waiting for the day where I actually sit there and like I'm looking at, somebody like you or Kim or something, and then it's actually a spirit. I'm just waiting for that day. I haven't actually had it yet that I'm aware of, but you never know. It could happen any day, anytime. You just never know.
And for our listeners, it may have already happened to them.
Right.
And they'll never know, because how many people do you pass throughout your day that you'll never see again? Right. So if it was a ghost or spirit, had I not had the owner's family there where I could ask them,
right.
Well, I thought it was the ghost or spirit told me that she was the daughter of the owner.
Oh.
Which the owner,
yeah.
I met the owner's daughter later. I was there like 2 months doing paranormal research. Towards the end of that 2-month period, I met the owner's daughter. And I looked at him and I said, you have 2 daughters. And that's how I found out about the other young lady was a ghost or a spirit.
Wow. That gives me chills just thinking about it. Now I'm going to be like questioning everybody I see this weekend. I'm going to be like, are you a person or are you a spirit?
That's true.
Well, it happens. It happened to me, and I wish I would have caught on. I should have caught on because most women don't have a smile on their face like that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I can only remember women having that type of smile on their face when I was younger, and they were falling in love with me. And I just thought that smile was just kind of unusual for me being 60 some years old. I thought, why she keep smiling? So if
Yeah.
that ever happens again, that's going to tip me off that she's probably a ghost or spirit.
That's right. That's right. Okay, we have time for one more question. This is kind of a running question. Darren asks it to every guest that has been on our podcast, and he kind of keeps a tally of this. He wants to know, what is the one object in this world that you would not want to be haunted?
What is the one object that you would not want to be haunted?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Huh. I've never really thought much about it. Um, that's a tough one. I haven't ran across too many haunted objects other than ghosts or spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did, I didn't realize they were haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess if anything, I don't. Well, it has to be an object, can't be a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a tough one.
I guess maybe my car, because if my car was
Yeah.
haunted, it could auto accident. That's the
Yeah.
only logical thing to think of.
That's what I picked too. That's what I said. I would not want I don't need help. I've had, like I've said in other ones, I've had enough accidents on my own. I don't need a car to be haunted to like increase that for me.
Yeah, it would be. That would not be good.
No. Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. So, we'll start to wrap things up here. So again, why don't you go ahead and, I know you said it earlier, but for people that are just joining us or may be joined later.
Car is a quiet second in the poll.
Oh, okay. Kim said car is second in the poll. Okay. Anyways, why don't you give out your information so so if anybody wants to follow you or find your book, where can they find you? Where can they find your book?
Well, my book, The Hayes House Ghost or People 2, is available online at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, and Second and Charles. My Facebook page is PetCat 2006. That's PETCAT 2006. If you have a Victorian home and you'd like to contact me via email about me doing paranormal research there, my email address is PETCAT2006 @yahoo.com.
Awesome. We'll get that information
I'm also
out.
on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and Twitter.
Okay, perfect. So make sure you guys go check out Keit Evans. Check out his book. Check him out. See what he's all about. I'd like to thank everybody who was in chat tonight. I'll give quick shout outs to everybody who was in chat. We had Kim, myself, we had Darren, Matt, Shay, Mama Deb. Thank you for joining us in chat tonight. Thank you for everybody who was not in chat but listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. I'd like to give a quick shout out to everybody. We hit our over 5,000 downloads. So thank you everybody for the support. We appreciate it. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. So thank you once again. And thank you to our special guest, Keit Evans, again, for being on. Awesome information. Love that you want to preserve the Victorian homes, and it's still mind-boggling that you were 3 or 4 years old and so interested in like the wood details and things of those places. You just wouldn't think of that, you know. But thank you again for being on. It was a pleasure. And like I said, thank you everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week we'll be on. I think we're going to talk about probably the expo. We're going to be going to an expo this weekend, so we'll probably talk about that next weekend. Week after that, there is a possibility I am in the works. I just got to get a hold of this person's manager, and they may be on the 8th, if they are not out of state at that time. So keep watching out for that information to see who that surprise guest may be. And then we'll be coming up on our 100th episode soon, so you'll have to stay tuned for that because we might have something in store for that as well. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Keith, for being on. We appreciate each and every one of you again. And like I said, next Thursday, join us again at 8, 7 Central. Peace out, everybody.
Thank you for listening to REP Paranormal and Friends. Be sure to check out Kim and Allison on Facebook at REP Paranormal Busters.